Welcome to the Rat Race to 5 podcast, where we discuss money, mindset, real estate investing, and ways to achieve financial independence. Whether you are a rookie or a veteran needing new ideas for investing or creating side hustles, you're in the right place. Here to challenge you to think out of the box, your hosts, Felipe Mejia and Diego Corzo.
What's up, everyone? We got a super exciting show for you today. We have William Rojas on the Rat Race to 5 podcast today. William is going to be talking about some crazy stuff, right, Diego? One of the biggest things that I liked about him personally is that he's finding cash flow in a not cash flowing market like California, especially Southern California. He's doing something where he's adding ADUs to the back of houses, and all of that is cash flowing. Blows my mind.
Yeah, and one of my favorite things is that in the beginning, he invested in a way to get out of the rat race first. And then now he's building for the future. And that's something that I feel like a lot of people don't do, and he explains everything very well.
Yeah, it was really good. I remember one time he's talking about, is he going to refinance a property and take out a whole lump sum of cash? But he talks about wanting to be like greedy for the future. I don't know. It's a super good podcast. I can't wait to get started. So why wait? Let's hear from William Rojas. William, what's up, buddy? Welcome to the Rat Race to 5 podcast, dude. We're super excited to have you here today. Diego, thank you so much, Diego, for joining us as well.
Yes, of course.
William, tell everyone a little bit about yourself. What do you do? Who you are? I mean, what's going on, man?
Felipe, Diego, thank you guys for having me. Super stoked to be here and glad to be on here. So a little bit about myself, born and raised in LA, LA kid through and through. I grew up here. I went to school here. Obviously, big fan of all the local sports teams. What can I say about myself? I'm super competitive. You know, my idol growing up, aside from my grandfather, was Kobe Bryant. The Mamba mentality is something that goes through my veins. And, my brothers and siblings and cousins can all attest to, whether it was a soccer game in the backyard or a actual real game in whatever sport I was playing, I thought of it as Game 7. So the competitive nature I've taken to everything I do in my life, whether it's work, school, lifting, you name it, golf now recently. So that's me in a nutshell. Just a competitive guy that's very family oriented.
Nice. There's a lot more in there, though. Okay, so tell us a little bit about your high school years. What kind of person were you in high school? Like, were you a jock? Were you a nerd? Were you like what? Like you said competitive, but I want to know, who was William Rojas in high school?
Fully focused on playing college football. So my mindset was, get to a Division I college program. Early on, I wanted to be a quarterback. I was a quarterback all through high school, was a starting quarterback. But at 5'10", 180, the colleges weren't knocking on my door for quarterback, right? They had their prototypical 6'5" and above, and all that. So, but during high school, early on, the first few years I was okay. I didn't do great, and then I met my girlfriend my sophomore year, who is now my wife, and she was a captain cheerleader, and she got me on the right page to stop, hanging out with the knuckleheads and get focused. So my last few years finished very strong in academics and athletics. And while I was there, I went to a private Catholic school my whole life. My first day of what I call free dress, or not wearing a uniform, was my first day of college. So that was a big, point of emphasis that my grandparents and my parents instilled in all of us, that we all went to Catholic private schools, right? So those were kind of the things that I held a lot of value to. I thought everybody wore uniforms in Catholic school.
So you said you played sports in high school, right? So obviously you wanted to go D1. Is there any Hispanic quarterbacks out there?
Mark Sanchez was a big one, and he's a Southern.
So you were next. You were next in line.
I had next, but he's also 6'3", so 6'3" to 5'10" makes a big difference. But there's local guys that have come out, and I eventually made it and walked on at USC, ended up playing defensive back. But as a Latino, I've always been one of the few in everything I did, whether it was, performing in the travel teams or performing in varsity teams. We had some, but there weren't many of us. And then especially at college level and professional level, it was, fewer to come by.
Right.
Yeah, and have you seen that with that too, with being a minority, being Hispanic? Have you seen that too, that there's not that many potential people investing in real estate from that perspective in your particular area?
Absolutely. And that's honestly one of the main things that I'm sure we'll come back to. Why I started my own firm was because I wanted to be, someone that the community can look up to, right? I have a big passion, and I'll get into this, about land use and development. And there's a big developer in town named, Rick Caruso, who developed some of the biggest projects in LA. And it took him a long time. He had to work with a lot of the neighborhood groups, but he was, someone that represented the city. I want to be that face for Southern California and LA going forward, and be a role model to a lot of other individuals that, that look like me.
So why I feel like that's something that us Latinos throw around a lot. That look like me. What does that mean to you? What does that mean to, I don't know if you have kids or not, but nephews, nieces, anyone younger than you that looks up to you? What does that mean, that looks like me as an investor? And we'll get into your investing in a minute.
Sure.
But what is, and we'll talk about what led up to that, but what does that mean to you? That looks like me.
I think when you say looks like me, I'm not talking about pigment of your skin. I'm talking about your experiences, right? How you place certain level of value on those Sunday cenas and the trips to Mexico in the summer, and having those experiences on the ranch, and having all those different cultural references that when you're sitting in a boardroom with different people and different ethnicities, they don't necessarily know why you celebrate Christmas on Christmas Eve versus everybody else on Christmas Day.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
That's so funny. One of the things that I love about now having my own podcast is that I can talk about this openly. And what's blown my mind, William, is that I talk a lot about that I invest with people that speak my language, and I'm not talking about English or Spanish. I mean that speak my language, like what you just said, where I celebrate Christmas a little different, right? Where I know what it means to go to El Rancho y que te manden por las tortillas, and then you got to come back and you're like, wait, how many tortillas was I supposed to bring back? You know what I'm talking about.
100%.
So
100%.
Yeah, that's exactly what I also talk about when I'm like, hey, someone that looks like me, that's someone that speaks my language. It's got nothing to do with color, and it's got nothing to do with my English or Spanish, right? So yeah, absolutely. I think that's great. And I think a lot of people in your state are going to look up to you, especially, us, the minority population, is going to look up and say, man, that guy understands me because he knows what it's like to spend the summers in Mexico, right? I remember going back to school, and it was like, oh, what did you do this summer? Oh, I don't know. My family went to Florida, and my family did this. And I was like, well, dang, I just spent 24 hours in a truck to get to Mexico. And then I spent a week there, and then I spent a week to go to another spot. And then it was a whole day trip back, driving through Texas, Arkansas, like just all that to get back to where I'm from. And it's like that connection, right? Like you want to be able to show people that you can go through that and still be successful in what we invest in. Kind of went on a tangent there, but really quick, William, what led from high school to where you're at now? What are the meat and potatoes that went from wanting to be a D1 professional player, going to the league maybe, to what you're doing now? What happened there?
So what I would say is it's been instilled in me since an early age, right? That the American dream is there and possible. My grandfather immigrated from Mexico, Zacatecas, and he came on a work visa, ended up doing it the right way, getting his citizenship. And, he started as a landscaper, a gardener, 7 days a week, hustling, right? He had 4 kids at the time, and he was just saving and stacking cash, saving money. He bought one property, then he bought another one, and then he bought another apartment, right? So just seeing that, having no resources and pulling himself up, bootstrapping, having a real estate portfolio here and in Mexico. So that was one example. The second one, my father didn't go to college. He had different, he had me pretty young, early 20s. And he he did nightclub stuff, and then he had a restaurant, and then there was a big riots in LA. His restaurant went down, and then he got his contractor license, general construction. He's a general contractor. We had a big earthquake here. It propelled his career. He learned from the difficult times of having young kids and having a restaurant that went out, that he needed to save his cash, right? So he worked really hard. He whatever he could, he put it to our private education. And one thing that really resonated with me as I went through my professional career was my dad was at every one of my games. He was my coach. All my friends, my best friends called him Coach Bill. He made an effort, and he had the flexibility. He had the freedom. He owned his own company. No one told him he had to be anywhere. He made his own schedule. So that was two main pillars that kind of showed me that entrepreneurship is in my blood, right? Then I graduated high school, ended up at USC. And, first thing I did was join the Latino Business Club, because I didn't know how to put a resume together. I didn't know how to network. I didn't know how to do anything professionally, right? That was the first thing I joined. And then I got there, I joined the real estate club because I was focused on real estate. I joined a fraternity on the Row, which is a normal Greek fraternity with people of all different majors, of all different ethnicities, the traditional fraternity. And then I got access to kids that have trust funds that I've never seen before. I saw kids that, their parents were CEOs of like Fortune 500 companies. So now I have three parts of campus: the Latinos, the business and the real estate club, and then the fraternity. Then I joined the football team, and that opened, that was just a grind, being in one of three football players in the business school of staying up till 2 a.m., then practice at 5 a.m. But all four of those pillars of campus gave me opportunities to get my career after. After I graduated, I worked in the corporate real estate world. I went to Wells Fargo. I wanted the biggest brand name possible to, show everybody that a big company did their diligence on me. From there, I went to go work for a developer and a large private equity firm after that. And eventually found my way into entrepreneurship. But when I was working those 80-hour weeks, I always came back to the central theme of wanting to be able to be around for my kids. And it's not all just about a W-2 job or salary. It's having that balance in life.
Yeah, and with this, William, one of the things that you said, well, there were two things that really popped out to me. But one of them was that when you were in college, you met up with people that were in real estate, then you network with people in the business school, and then you network with people in your fraternity, right? And I feel like one of the things that definitely helped you out throughout your career has been the connections that you've been able to build. And that is a skill in connecting with other people and just being able to, of course, provide them value, right? But at the end of the day is having that access to those people, because at the end of the day, your net worth is your network. So that's something that I feel like you did very well at a young age. And then the other thing that stuck with me as Latino too, right, as a minority, as an immigrant, that the American dream is out there, but it is up to us to go and find it, right? At the end of the day, like I always say, the U.S. is a land of opportunity, but we have to be resourceful and find those opportunities to be able to achieve our goals. So that's awesome. So then from that perspective, what got you to where you are now?
So I did 10 years in commercial real estate, right? So I started...
William, hold on. Let me cut you off, bro. I thought you were going to say I did 10 years in jail. I thought you were going to say, dude, I did 10 years in jail. I'm like, wait. Hold on, we gotta go back. Sorry. Okay,
I would be a lot buffer. I would be a lot buffer if I did. But I started from the top down, right? I started at a very, very institutional commercial real estate level where I was doing, $20 to $100 million deals. My largest deal was $450 million. That I was the one managing the underwriting, the Excel, managing the due diligence, making sure that the lawyers and the accountants and the tax consultants were all speaking, right? So 10 years of really learning how the big boys do it, how cities are being moved and changed, and how, employers and the tech companies are making decisions on where to be. So I got the institutional experience from the last decade that I've been working in the corporate world. over that time, got married, bought a house. Now I have a 2.5-year-old. And as my career progressed, the hours were still there, was cranking, 80-hour weeks regularly, missing the Sunday, quinceañeras and different things with the family. And a lot of my family didn't really get it. They're like, why? What, just for a paycheck? And I said, look, I'm building for the future right now. I got to put in my time, and it'll pay dividends down the road with experience.
William, can I ask you a question about that? I don't want to get too far into this story. I want to ask a question. And I'm a father as well. I have a 3-year-old son. And I want to know Diego's input on this too. Do you think it's a lie that we tell, let's be honest with each other here for a minute. Do you think it's a lie that we tell each other, I'm building for the future? Is that something we tell ourselves? Or do we really believe that when we're grinding to get to that next step? Do you think it has anything to do with what we really want? And I'm just wondering curiously, and I'll answer the question too. I'll let Diego answer first, since he's not the father. Diego, do you think that's a lie we tell ourselves? I'm grinding for the future.
It really depends on what the end goal is. Like, you can tell yourself, if you're grinding for the future, and at the end of the day you just love the game. There's a difference that if you were grinding where you give yourself the opportunity to be like, okay, you know what? Once I'm making $15,000, let's say in passive income, then I'm going to slow down. But if you get to that goal and you're like, holy crap, I'm still grinding and it's because you love it, then at that point, you're just in love with the game.
Great answer.
And you can tell yourself whatever you want, but you're still going to grind until you're 80 years old.
Kind of like Diego not getting a virtual assistant. William, so what?
It's coming. It's coming.
It better be. William, what do you think that's a lie we tell ourselves? Let's be honest with ourselves.
I don't think it's a lie. I think it depends on the situation. For me, I knew entrepreneurship was the end goal. I didn't know if it was going to be when I was 28 or when I was 40. And what I realized early on was there's a perfect name for a podcast, the rat race, right? Once you keep going on that wheel that, I have too many kids, my mortgage is too much, my kids are all in private school, maybe I'd want to join a golf club or get season tickets to some sporting team. Now you can't quit. Now your overhead is too high. Your burn rate, you have to sustain that, right? Or you're going to have an upset wife. You got to make sure that you're planning ahead. So for me, it was always bust myself and work really hard. And then when it feels like it's appropriate, it's appropriate. And I made the jump, at an interesting time during this pandemic, but I'm betting on myself for the future. So.
Okay. So this is a great segue. Great. So you're betting on yourself now. What happened after the W-2 9-to-5 grinded out? What happens? Why did William decide to now do his thing? So talk us through that mentality.
So I didn't fully jump in, into the pool all in right out of the gate. I kind of dipped my toe.
Le dio miedito.
I needed to cover my bases. I wanted to make sure I knew what I was doing before I fully went all in. So I was working the day job, but I was on weekends and late nights. I was creating the LLC. I already knew the real estate game, so I already knew how to underwrite and kind of look at deals and have the team, but I didn't do it for myself. I was doing it for other employers. So I bought my first 2 properties while I was still employed, right? And that was it's a whole different ballgame than working for another company and doing it for yourself, right? The stress and anxiety is just at a different level because, my personal house is on the line, completion guarantees, things you got to sign off on. So for me, it was get to a point where you know what you're doing and then go all in. So once I had my accounting in place, once I had my LLCs in place, I have my holding company, then I felt like, okay, what am I waiting for? I've done it already 2 times. I have the relationships. I have the wherewithal and the know-how. Let's go. And I did it last January, right before, the 100-year pandemic, right? First time since the 100-year pandemic. And it's, I thought I was going to be doing capital raising all year, just taking people to lunch, dinner, happy hours, and just pitching them on what we're doing. And then the pandemic hits and everybody's like, call me after you get the vaccine. Call me when we don't have to Zoom. And it's just part of the process. I'm going with the flow. We bought a property during the pandemic, and it's it's a blessing in disguise. I think down the road, it's going to be a blessing in disguise.
I like that. So, okay, so so tell us where you're at now. What's today look like? What are your unit counts? What are you investing in? Give us a 30,000 foot view of what William Rojas does now.
Sure. So it's a family business. It's myself kind of running the overarching development real estate platform. My family has a construction company. So my dad's building high-end spec homes in Beverly Hills, Hollywood Hills. And my brother is a project manager, kind of head of construction. And then my other brother works a W-2 job still. So the four of us are kind of the partnership, right? We have the docs, everything, crystal clear on roles and everything else. And we have 4 properties that we own in various stages, 2 that are completed, that we fully renovated, bought with hard money, renovate, lease out, refi, the whole game. We have 1 that's about to be completed in about 2 months. And then we have 1 that's a retail building, 10,000 square foot site that took me about 1.5 years to entitle for apartment units. So my unit count today is about 8 units. And it will be, after we start construction and deliver this 10 unit, will be 18. And I mean, in LA terms, that's almost $10 million of appraised value, right? It hits different in certain coastal cities. So I think that's kind of the big picture on what we're doing holistically, but we're splitting my time 85% real estate development, 10-15%. I'm kind of head of operations for our construction company. And those 2 companies are intertwined. We're a vertically integrated real estate development company where we have the relationships with the subcontractors, with all the different, consultants that we need to get a project done. It's all in-house, and I'm managing it myself right now. I'm probably 1 building away from figuring out how to scale and get a property manager. But the goal is buy, build, and hold apartments in LA because we're in a housing crisis. So trying to bet long-term here.
Interesting. So I want you to take us back to the first deal, because you are now at eight doors with a potential of 10 more, right? What can you describe to us, what was that first deal?
First deal was a neglected, non-bankable triplex. And the kicker here was it was vacant. So I'm not in the business of trying to go and do a bunch of cash for keys and, kick out a bunch of, disenfranchised, residents. The value was in the property being vacant and being able to go in, do my work quickly, and get it stabilized. It was in an area where the comps were kind of at the very high end and at the very low end. It was a neighborhood in transition, but my relationships in commercial real estate, they gave me insight to, I knew what was coming before everybody else. I knew the retail brokers. I knew the office brokers. So I knew certain big tenants were looking in certain areas that wasn't readily available. I mean, you can look online and read articles, but I had a hint that, on a risk adjusted basis, this was going to be a good bet. So went in and we bought the property with a hard money loan because it was not bankable. We had a year to get the work done and refi. So that was kind of nerve wracking, but we went in and took it down to the studs, fully renovated everything. And, 2 things that we did to kind of differentiate ourselves from other properties in the area were, there was the side of the building was previously neglected, where it was just, old area where the garage, the trash cans would go. We ended up cutting up 3 spots of that, putting in some fencing, putting in some gravel, some string lights. Now each one of those units have a private patio, right? Which differentiates that property from other properties in the neighborhood. Then we went and did the carport. We built in a storage area into the carport. So my rents were not the lowest in town. But when you speak to a prospective renter and you say, look, this is my rate, but I pay water, you're getting an outdoor area, and I know it's a 1-bedroom, 600 square feet or whatever it was. You also get a storage unit, comes with it, all included in your price. So your Christmas decorations and your Halloween stuff doesn't have to be in your unit all year round, and you don't have to go off site for that. So we always look to add value in places where other people are not looking and try to get creative with that.
Interesting. That's really good, because I mean, the way that you looked at it is the space is already there at the end of the day, right? It's like the space that people would have just put their garbage cans, but you created that extra oomph so that a tenant will definitely say, hey, you know what? I'm getting more value, more things, whether that was the storage unit, the carport, than in other places, which makes your tenants happy. They will pay a premium for it, and they will more than likely stay there even longer. So that is something that's very important. Yeah. So you what did each side rent for?
They ran for close to $2,700 each unit. And you know, our largest one was, I think, $2,800 a month.
And how much was that? So how much did you buy that property? How much did you put in, and how much is it appraised now?
Yeah, we bought it for $800. We put about $150,000 into it and renovating it. We got it appraised in 2019, about 8-9 months after. Got appraised for about 1.3.
Cool. So you have some good equity there.
And here's the big thing that we did, right? This is a family asset, so this isn't for investors. This isn't for anybody else. We had a $500,000 loan on the property. We had a decision to cash out a bunch of money and keep going, or not take any money out and keep it at a low balance and cash flow it. So my principal right now on my loan is about $2,500 a month, and I'm cash flowing close to $8,000. So we're going to pay that one down over time, and that stays in the family. That one doesn't go out, right? So we have different strategies with different investors that, maybe we're pulling money out, giving everybody 90% of their money back, and then it's a long-term hold. This is just a family asset. So this is just to pass on. I want my kid to come collect rent. Cool.
And then my other question, because then I'm going to have another question regarding the family stuff, but how did you, so this property, you couldn't just go to the bank. You have to get a hard money loan. What were the terms? And was it a hard money loan from somebody that you knew, or was it like a credit union or something?
It was Googling hard money lenders.
Okay.
And I got one that was 7.5%, which is pretty good for a hard money loan. I've got other ones that were double digits.
100%.
And we didn't take any construction financing out because we didn't want to deal with the loan draws or having to wait for cash to pay our subcontractor. So we just kind of stomached the construction. But it was falling apart, right? I mean, the walls were painted different colors. It was, the first thing I do every time we buy a property is get it pest control and get it tented. But it didn't appraise well up front. We barely got it on the purchase because the comps weren't there. This is a neighborhood where the puck is going, not where the puck has been. So we're trying to tell the story. No, trust me, it's coming, and it's falling apart. But then after we did our renovation, and we have a great team in place, and we know what we're doing on the construction side, it appraised great because more comps were coming online to support our value.
Cool. And then going back to the family, because this is really interesting. So there's four of you.
Yes.
How for this deal, did everybody wanted to keep this as a cash flow deal, or did you guys did you, for example, had to convince one of your brothers to be like, hey, let's not take the equity, let's just keep it cash flow?
Well, this is going back to kind of the thought process. This was always intended to be a cash flower so that I can go full on in, right, and quit the rat race. So the first few projects have always been with the idea we got to get a cash flow going so that we can cover our overhead, so that we can really go all in on TRG is what we call our platform, TRG investments. So yes, the first few, and including the ones we're doing now, are really just to get that cash flow up so that we can just not have to do side hustles and other things to pay our bills, and we can just stay fully focused on building this platform that we're trying to create.
That's awesome, because it definitely takes that mentality, right? It's a lot of people don't like sometimes they may not have the mentality to build that cash flow to get them financial independence. And when they don't focus on that, they may just focus on equity or the appreciation. For example, they're going to be working at that job for a while. Now, if they love it, great. But I like what you did is that you were investing for cash flow. Other people would have just taken that money, but you did it in a different way because it fit your goals. And that's what's great about real estate is that you can, like, one deal can fit different people's goals depending on the situation and how you analyze it and how you take action. Felipe, do you want to say anything to that too?
Yeah, I wanted to add a little bit because I think a lot of Latinos, and this is what happened to me, William. When I first started in real estate, right, I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm starting in real estate, but I don't know anybody. I don't know anybody with money. All I know is plumbers, electricians, framers, flooring installers, drywallers, roofers, gutters. Wait a minute. I do know, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like a lot of times we do that to ourselves. Yo no conozco a nadie que va a poder ayudar. Yo no conozco a nadie con dinero, right? You're like, I only know these workers. And now that I'm in real estate, I'm like, dude, people wish they knew what we knew. Like, people wish they knew that they could look at a sixplex or a multifamily like you did and be able to get out a bunch of money out of it because you added so much value to it based on the people you know, right? Everyone out there is paying market value, if not more, for work to be done. We get that stuff at like 60%.
Call it Theo. You got to call it Theo or somebody knows somebody.
I'm trying to tell you. And that Theo is bringing you equity like a mother. Por ejemplo, yo tengo un tío que me hace a lot of my framework and my builds and my construction homes. Bro, he's charging me like $100 to build 2 walls when that goes for $1,000+, right? And it's like, those are the type of connections that you can use your family member to help you on. And I think a lot of like Latino, minority, you know, people that feel like they don't look like the typical investor tend to not use their I'm going to have Diego back me up on this. Something about your advantage is your disadvantage. What do you always say, Diego?
Yeah, it's like your unfair advantage. Everybody has one, but it's up to us to find it, to define it for us. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, what is your unfair advantage? And it is knowing un tío que te puede hacer el favor to fill in the blank, right? Like now you use that to your advantage. Okay, maybe you don't have the money, so okay, go get the money. But then use your unfair advantage in everything else. And I think that's where a lot of people maybe fall short. We're like, I only know, you know, mi familia nomás hace fill in the blank. And it's like, dude, that's really good. Like you can use that to your advantage. Look at what William just did.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And the one thing too, just for everybody that's in the audience too, is when you are looking and investing in a deal and you're in the inspection period, you can negotiate any repairs, right? Let's say that you need something with like the plumber or an electrician or something. You can get a quote from a large company, but if you have a family member that can fix it or that can do that, then for sure you know that they can do it for a much less expensive way. You can still negotiate the big cost, knowing that the seller might give you that towards closing cost, and then you can figure out at the end of the day with a family member or somebody that's less expensive. So use that to your advantage. I'm a big proponent of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I like that. Diego's like full of these like one-liners that are like, if I could remember all these, I gotta put them on shirts or something. William, what's next for you, bro? Okay, so you were able. Okay, no, talk to us. This deal now is just going to cash flow, right? You're going to end up leaving it for family. What's it look like now moving forward? What are you looking for to do? What does the next 5 years look like? You can tell us a little bit about going forward.
Sure. So now that I'm out of the rat race, quote unquote, and now kind of on my own, it's a different level of pressure, right? I'm figuring out what I need, what's my burn rate, just to provide food and shelter and have a little bit extra. But now the game is, how do I scale my business? And not everybody wants to scale. Some people are okay with the strategy of building something out of nothing and then going and retiring at a beach or something else and having your eggs pay you dividends going forward. For me, I'm ambitious. I'm all in. I want to grow what I'm doing here.
See, you weren't building for the future. You're going to keep on building.
That's what I'm saying. See, that's exactly what I'm saying.
Exactly. No, I'm just kidding.
My future is to keep building. My future is to keep building.
Yeah.
I don't ever want to retire. I don't think of real estate as a job. I think of it as something that you do and you change and you create. And it's It's a tangible
but it gives
asset,
you
right?
the time. Like you get to go to your kid's football team or your kid's football game because now you have the you decide. And that's what a lot of people don't get. It's not about the retiring. It's not about the millionaire status. It's about the time. I get to choose what I want to do. And if I choose to be at my son's basketball game, I'm going to be there. And if I choose to go be at a real estate meeting, I'm going to be there. Or if I choose to sit down with two other like-minded individual Latinos that invest in real estate and do a podcast, that's what I'm going to do. And that's the beauty of real estate. Sorry, William, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, it's 100%. I have this vision that I've heard on this other podcast from this very successful high-end broker, right? He said, I just had this vision of manifesting my future, right? And since I heard that, it's always been about, I have this image of having, a morning where I wake up, I take my kids to school, I go to my projects, I see the different development sites. I'm obviously getting into a nice car. And then, I do my meetings, I do my whatever I got to get done for the day. And then I go see my kid's baseball game. And that's what I have in the back of my mind of what I'm trying to create. If I have big projects going on, maybe I'm at my kid's game and I have to step aside to take a call with the lawyer, but I'm still there. And then I come back and then I'm in, right? And having that flexibility to create my own future because, there's certain pillars with my faith, my family, and what I'm doing with my career that's all I want to give into and have a holistic approach to my life, not just only work or only family or only this. It has to be holistic.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I might be wrong. I think I saw something on your Instagram about ADUs.
Correct.
Can you dig into that just a little bit? What's going on there?
So this is one of the things that I'm playing to my advantage, right? So I am very passionate about land use and finding value where other people don't. So I've zeroed in on certain areas of LA where the zoning or the lot allows to add additional units, right? So for instance, buy a property for $500K, $600K. Well, there's a whole big backyard in the back. There's a law that was passed last year, January 2020, AB 68, which allows a 1,200 square foot ADU to go on any single family property by right? So now you buy a property for $500,000 or $800,000, and let's say that house was 1,300 square feet or 1,200 square feet, you can literally double the square footage. Talk about creating value on a site. Right. And what I do, I don't just do it for ADUs, but I do it for single family houses. The ones we're buying are all zoned for triplexes or fourplexes. So I go in and I'll maybe pay a little bit more than someone would pay for a rundown house, but I don't care. I'm buying the land because now I know by right, I can build 4 units on that site. So, but coming back to the ADU, up to 1,200 square feet, we're building one right now, about 400 yards away from the metro line in LA. That'll take you to either downtown or take you to Santa Monica. And, the original plan for the property was scrape the house and do 3 townhomes. But the house is a 4-bedroom house, great shape. We're going to renovate it. We'll be able to get a lot of rent for the house itself because right now houses are over $1 million in LA for the most part. And we turned the backyard into a 1,200 square foot ADU, ground floor, open concept, 2 bedrooms above. And you got a view of the Hollywood sign on a clear day. And now I just bought a house and turned it into 2 houses through this ADU law. And I'm building it at my cost. And, I have my guys on it, my unfair advantage, as Diego goes.
My tíos. My tíos y un seisito.
And now, we're going to put a dividing fence. We're going to have it, same bells and whistles that we put on all our projects. It's going to be a nice project. And it's just trying to have a differentiated lens. Other people look at it as a house. I look at it as a house and what else can I build on it? And, all that adds up over time, right? You can't just play the game of buy and try to do what everybody else is doing. We come in with, you got to get a different perspective. And at the end of the day, guys, you don't get paid for not creating value or not doing work. You got to create your own luck, and we create our own luck by putting our resources to doing more.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. And there's a quote by Jim Rohn who says, you get paid by the value that you build in the marketplace. And what you're doing in LA, it's freaking awesome because you're seeing a deal from a perspective that other people are not. and you're seeing like your numbers work in a different way. And for me, that's like for you, that's a huge advantage because you know what your exit strategy is. Now, is your goal to keep them after you do the ADU, like build one, then you keep one and sell another one? What is your end goal in the next few years?
My goal is hold on to good real estate. We're very picky. We don't want to sell. Real estate is not going anywhere, especially in LA. I mean, there's a little scare with the pandemic and people going to other cities, but this is the content creation capital of the world. Netflix is down the street. Apple's down the street. All those engineers, they're going to pay for rent somewhere. And I'm trying to give them a product that they want to rent at. So I want to hold long term. I think the strategy going forward is going to be working and raising capital and doing larger deals. So my goal over the next 5 years is now find that gas station or find that laundromat and, buy that as a retail site, but then work through the city and work through the proper channels in the neighborhood to find out how you can do mixed use building, 40 units with, ground floor retail below. Right. So that's where I really want to keep going. And then, LA, it's great appreciation market, very hard cash flowing market unless you create the cash flow. Right. So I have experience in Texas. I'm going to be looking on that I-35 corridor from Austin to San Antonio and looking for more cash flow plays, larger plays. Right. I want to be doing over 100 units over there. And continuing to diversify my portfolio, have my buildings in LA that are appreciating, but maybe not spitting off the cash flow. And then have my syndicated deals where, we're managing and turning units as they become vacant and have a little bit more of a cash on cash play, but have a portfolio that's diversifying.
So William, let me ask you this. There's a 16-year-old, 17-year-old Felipe, Diego, or William listening to this podcast. Man, I could never do what William's doing. Look at what he's got going on. He's got the family, the kid, the wife. Tiene todo. He must have had money growing up. I don't know. What would you tell the 16-year-old, sophomore, junior in high school with the baggy Dickies? I don't know what was going on in your time, but mine was the Dickies and stuff. What would you tell him to start doing now and that wants to be in your position? Like, I want that lifestyle. He's saying he wants, what advice would you give to that listener?
I would say first thing, a lot of people overestimate what they can do in a year and underestimate what they can do in 10 years. So that 16-year-old, maybe by 18, he's not going to have it all figured out, but through the right mentorship and self-study and guidance and podcasts and whatever else, in 10 years, it can be way past me, right? What I would say is you have to take it a day at a time and you have to be long-term greedy. Long-term greedy is something I'm very focused on, right? I'm not thinking about, just right now, or else I would have cashed out on that project I mentioned, took that money and had some fun with it, right? Or upgraded my house or upgraded more stuff, but I'm long-term greedy, right? So what I would tell the young person is do as much as you can. Right now, there's so much information out there with YouTube, with podcasts, with articles, where it's out there. It's on you to find it. Diego, Felipe, myself, we can all tell you guys and give you the blueprint. At the end of the day, we can't be there for you and make you do your first deal or make you reach out to mentors. It's on you, right?
Yeah, 100%. And the one thing that you mentioned, William, was that you said be long-term greedy, correct? So be long-term greedy. Is that something that you learned through like your family or something that you just read? Because I haven't heard that before, but I've never heard
that before. I really like that. Long-term greedy. I'm totally gonna tweet that. I'm even gonna claim it as mine, William. Sorry, I have more followers than you. I'm gonna say I said it.
This guy.
No, I'm just kidding. William, yeah, tell us about that. Where'd you get that?
Well, it comes back to from an early age. I always realized that entrepreneurship was my path. Right. So it was figuring out how do I get there, not knowing the steps in between, but always having the end vision. And I'll give you an example. When I was going through my early real estate career, first job I could get out of school was at a big bank on the lending side. I couldn't get an acquisition job. I couldn't get the sexy developer job because the market timing, 2010, 2011, but I got the best job I could get, which was on the lending side. I did that for a year, 2 years, and then I learned how the lenders looked at things. And then I said, well, I really want to be an entrepreneur. I can't just know what the lending side does and what the bankers do. I want to go work for a developer. And now at the development shop, you get the deals, you have the loans, the lenders, but then you need to raise the capital because they're only putting in 5 to 10% of the deal. So I said, you know what, I really want to, before I go off on my own, I want to see what the LP, the investor side looks like. I did that for five years almost. And that was my MBA, my CFA, my master's in real estate all in one. Was just cranking 80-hour weeks. I was doing acquisitions, but then I was also doing asset management. And I was very, I had the opportunity to only do acquisitions at some points or only do asset management. And I was greedy with my managers where I said, I want to be a well-rounded investor. What good does it do to buy a property and then hand it off to somebody else? I don't see how those assumptions came to fruition. So I wanted to see those rents that I put in and that, for a retail building, tenant allowance, did we actually hit that? And what I found from managing the properties, I found that you usually hit your rent. It just took longer and it cost more to get there. So then when I went to the next acquisition, now I said, okay, let me get a little bit more realistic assumptions. I just saw what happened on the last few projects. It makes you a little bit more conservative. But then when you see a deal that works with conservative assumptions, you're all over it. Now your conviction is all in and you're zeroing in on that. So the long-term greedy was always figure out all the different things you can with the end goal of being an entrepreneur. And now when I'm raising capital or talking to lenders or talking to other developers, I have that point of reference because I was very greedy on getting all those experiences and not just staying in one job.
Gosh, I love that. I love that. Long-term greedy. Part of that's gonna be the name of the episode today. I'm gonna try to make it not weird because I don't want people to be like, oh, he's a greedy guy, but something to do with like long-term greedy.
Protecting your future. Protecting your future.
I love that. William, we never asked you, where are you from?
My family, I'm born and raised in LA, but my family is from a little ranch town in Zacatecas, Mexico.
Oh, you did say, okay, Zacatecas, Mexico. Cool. One day we're going to have somebody straight from Mexico que se eche un grito mexicano.
It's not going to be me. It's not going to be me.
We're going to get someone to do el grito mexicano on here. It's going to be great. William, honestly, bro, thank you so much for coming out to Rat Race to 5 podcast, dude. This will launch sometime in March or April. We'll get it through editing and all that. We'll get a good picture. If you wouldn't mind emailing us a picture of yourself that you would want to use for the headshot for this, that would be fantastic. But man, thank you so much, seriously, for coming out. You're a huge inspiration. We really wanted to start a podcast, like we said, where people can see themselves in us as investors. And I didn't just mean, like you said, color or language, but really see themselves based on the experiences that we've had from a young age to blossoming into great entrepreneurs into what we do now. Diego Corzo being an awesome real estate agent, holding 20 doors plus in his career. What you're doing, I can't wait to see what you're going to grow into. Definitely go into Austin, mess up Diego's backyard. Just don't come to mine. Leave me alone. Go do what you want to do.
I'll invest with you on that.
Diego will partner with you. So, William, any last words? And then in that, would you mind telling us where everyone can find you and on Instagram, or where can people get in touch with you?
Sure. Last words, I would say not everybody has it figured out. We all put our pants on 1 foot at a time. I've gotten to a certain level of things that I've accomplished, but I'm nowhere near where I want to be. And if you would have told me 10 years ago, I would have done all this, I would have said you're crazy, because I was just trying to find my way. Again, people overestimate what they can do in a year, underestimate what they can do in 10 years. And just keep chugging along every day and you'll get there. And I still have a lot more to go. And, where you can find me, I'm recently active on Twitter, about a month in, where I'm sharing my thoughts. I've been very quiet on, what I know and what I share, but I said, there's a lot of people that can benefit from my experiences. So Twitter, Rojas, TRG, Instagram, WA Rojas, and, hopefully more podcasts down the road. We're glad to be on this one as my first one.
I'm excited. William, thank you so much. As always, guys, my name is Felipe. You can find me on Instagram at Felipe Mejia, REI. Diego Corzo, my co-host, he's going to talk about where you can find him.
Yeah, find me at IG Real Diego Corzo.
That's right. That's right. William, thank you so much for being on the show, buddy. We're going to get you out of here.
Thank you, guys.
The Rat Race to 5 podcast, where we discuss money, mindset, real estate investing, and ways to achieve financial independence. Whether you are a rookie or a veteran needing new ideas for investing or creating side hustles, you're in the right place.